I'm joined today by Caron Lane. She's the chief executive of the Forever Hounds Trust, a charity that rehomes greyhounds and selected other doggies like lurchers. Caron, thank you so much for joining us today. We're obviously talking about the fact that last week Wales and Scotland banned greyhound racing. What was your reaction when you heard that?
I think in some ways it felt unbelievable that we'd actually got to that point. Forever Hounds Trust has been anti-racing for 10 years. Before that, we were a bit more on the fence, and because we were still helping greyhounds from trainers, we made a decision 10 years ago to be anti, and to want the phasing out of racing, which is obviously something that now we can work towards. But yeah,
What made
to
you
have,
change 10 years ago? What was the
I
catalyst
think
for that?
so. Prior to that, we'd been part of the Greyhound Forum, and that was where we were looking at licensing and welfare being the way to go. But after you've been doing that for a long time, we're actually 30 this year. So we'd been doing that for 20 years. And when you're not seeing enough change come from that, then it means that you have to take a different route. So that's when we decided to go to be against racing, pro the phasing out. At that point, we then had to leave the forum because we were anti racing. And I think when you say anti, people think, oh, you're kind of very I don't know, they're demonstrating and doing everything. It's not, but what we do is see the results of racing in the dogs that come in, and we see the injuries, the long-term pain that dogs may suffer from.
Yeah.
So, and some dogs who are very easy to home and some who aren't because of what they've been through.
Yeah.
So all of those things combined.
Mark Ruskell, the Scottish MSP, who also has an ex-racing
Yeah,
greyhound himself, and who shepherded this bill
yeah,
through the Parliament in Edinburgh, he made a
yeah,
really impassioned speech just before the bill was passed, and I thought it was
yes,
touching how much he knew, and it really felt like it
yeah.
came from his heart. What did you think
Yes.
about that?
Yeah, I did. It was outside, wasn't it, when he spoke? Um, and I think that's the difference, that sometimes people who are pro racing will try and poo-poo what we're saying. But actually every dog is an individual to us. And just as Mark spoke about what he has seen with his dogs, we are looking at dogs knowing what they've been through in the same way. A lot of pro racers will say things like, but they love to, they love to run. They do love to run, but not in a forced way,
Yeah,
not in, going hell for leather, bumping into each other, falling over.
yeah,
Sometimes catastrophic injuries occur. There are
yeah,
fatalities at the track. If you watch, because it's all live streamed, and that's why racing exists, is for the betting industry.
yeah,
So when you watch some of those, I've struggled to watch the live streaming because you're at any point that there could be something that happens, and that
yeah,
could be a dog that falls, breaks its neck, breaks its
yeah,
back, and it's
yeah.
really hard to see. Yeah,
I also can't really watch it, but I forced myself to watch one or two videos. And of course, the camera follows the race, the field, doesn't
yeah,
it? So the one dog that
yeah,
crashes out and is seriously injured
yeah,
is immediately forgotten automatically,
yeah,
isn't it? And it's just so
yeah,
heartbreaking to see
yeah,
that. Of course, one of the big problems we have to discuss is England, because there's only one racetrack in Wales.
yeah,
There are no racetracks in
mm,
Scotland. So effectively, all these dogs are still going to race in England. Why
yeah.
is this taking England so long? What's the holdup here?
I don't know. It's slowly changing. So what we've seen is the tracks in the south are disappearing. Swindon only closed at the end of December,
Okay.
25, and we've been working with trainers from there. So what you've got previously, the track in Poole, that when that sort of stopped, then people moved up to race at Swindon. Now people say, oh, are they going to Oxford or are they going to Wales? Obviously, the ban in Wales now helps that when it comes actually into
Mhm.
force. Um, But when you move up north, the Midlands and north, there's still a lot. Um, but again, people paint it as something that people used to go for an
Yeah.
evening, watch dog racing. And there are lots of things, aren't there, that happened 20, 30 years ago that we don't do. If we look at comedy from 20 or 30 years ago, we don't
Yes.
approve of it now.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
Yeah.
Um, but the majority, it isn't an evening out now in the main. Um, Although it's painted in that way, it's actually very much just streaming into betting shops. And
Yeah.
betting shops to be open, they have to be streaming something. So if a betting shop is open, early in the morning, they need to be streaming something. So
Can't they
they'll have
stream, I don't know, football? Can't they stream something else?
yeah,
Car
no.
racing, something
Yeah,
else. Does it
yeah,
have to be dogs?
no.
I found doing my
Exactly. But
research, it's also only 10% of the whole betting industry is dogs now, right? It's not even a big
yeah,
part anymore.
yeah, no. And it is it, I think in the sort of economics of it will drive it. Stadiums are now being changed for housing and things like that. It's needed.
Yeah.
Um, so, but we don't want to wait for that to happen. We do want the phasing out because obviously you can't suddenly have thousands and thousands of dogs that we need to rehome. Rescues are full of dogs, but as part of in the lead up to everything happening in Wales, we formed something called the Welsh Greyhound Partnership, which is a mix of charities, all breed and sighthound specific. And we started to look at what we could do in terms of rehoming, how many dogs there might be that needed homes,
Okay.
and how we would then work with them. Because we didn't know what was going to happen with the bill, then actually we've worked to support Swindon trainers.
Okay.
So although they left it, some people probably left it to the last minute, maybe hoping that Swindon would stay open or something like that. But we've actually worked with 100 dog. We have just over 100 dogs on our database from Swindon, and we've found homes for over 50 of
Oh,
those
that's really good.
in quite
Congratulations.
in a 6 month period. We've
Yeah.
worked steadily with them. The trainers have also been working to find homes,
Yeah.
and this is something that we're trying to do is to work with the trainers. So
Yeah.
we do, before there's a space in rescue, we will assess the dog. We will see what they're like with small dogs, so we can maybe give them some things to be doing. And I think if someone really cares about their dog, then they're going to do that and they're going to help us to find that
Yeah.
space
How many more
and
dogs are coming
appropriate.
into rescue now because of the bans in Wales and Scotland? Do you expect a bump in numbers, or is the phasing out long enough that it can be
I think the
mitigated?
phasing out is long enough that those who are sort of gradually going to decide to finish, or maybe don't have so many dogs, they will. I think the worry is that there are people who've got, 100 dogs. Um, and so for those people, it's far enough away that they'll still race and they will still want to fill the gaps. So as a dog comes to the end of its racing career, they will want to fill with another dog from
Mhm.
Ireland because most of the dogs are coming from Ireland. And there's still time to allow for that. The
Okay.
average age a dog is coming out is 4.
Okay.
So really they're coming over, they're trialing, 18 months they're coming in. You've got that sort of 18 months to 4 years. So we've still got dogs who could come over from Ireland now, be racing for the whole time while we lead up to the ban, and then come out, actually retire out
Yeah.
at that time. We need to then start the work for England because we're still talking about 18 tracks in England. So
Yeah,
that's
I was going to
that's a
come
lot.
back to that. So obviously it's Lisa
Yeah,
Nandy, who is the Secretary for Culture, Media and Sport. So it would fall into
yeah,
her remit. And she said last year in Parliament that she felt there was no need for this. There was
mm,
still public support for this, which I
mm.
don't think is correct. So I'm
No,
wondering, it's so strange, isn't it? Because Labour has made some very good noises when it comes to animal
Yeah,
welfare, but at the same
yeah,
time, they seem to be completely deaf when it comes to greyhound racing. And I'm
yes.
wondering why that is.
I don't know. And now the work starts. So I think it's having achieved what's been achieved in Wales and Scotland, it's that moving to England to really start the conversations. And some of those conversations have been had, sometimes you need something to spur people on, don't you?
Yeah,
And the fact that it's happened in England and in Scotland and Wales means that England now is lagging behind in a way.
yeah,
So it gives some help to the situation, I
yeah.
think. But
And we should probably also mention, because Northern Ireland is sort of forgotten in this whole discussion.
yeah,
I think there's only one track in Northern Ireland and it doesn't fall
yeah,
into the GBGB sort of remit. Is that
yes.
correct? So that
Yeah,
seems to be a
and
bit of
in
a,
Ireland, there
yeah,
are still a lot of tracks.
yeah. So,
But when you look across the world, then a lot of other countries are. New Zealand are banning now.
which is great
Um,
news.
so yeah,
Yeah.
Australia still has it though. So, and America, I think, is only down to two tracks.
Yeah, in West
So
Virginia, that's what I read
yeah,
during my research.
the track in Wales Valley used to be what was called a flapping track, so an unlicensed track,
Oh,
and
okay.
then it became licensed. Um, and if you look around the world, there are a lot of unlicensed tracks where things are happening. So
Yeah.
you may get, there's conversations around, and we've had it where trainers might be considering sending a dog to Pakistan, for instance.
You already talked about money in terms of the betting industry, and of course there is money in it, otherwise people wouldn't be doing it. But I'm
Yeah.
wondering, how are the trainers and the dog owners supporting you as a charity? Are they supporting you? Are they giving you money? Are they helping you with your costs? Because you're helping them, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah. So previously, this was an interesting, I think, conversation we would have had previously where they wouldn't necessarily, or someone would have given us, £10 to rehome a dog, and we're gonna,
Honestly.
they are come vaccinated, but we're going to neuter them, and usually they need dentals because their teeth are horrendous and things like that. Now we're a bit more strict in our conversations with trainers. They pay into a bond scheme with the GBGB. And so we say that they do have to give us the bond. So it's not huge, it's £200 that we get, but at least it's something towards their
Yeah.
care. And now that's it used to be a really difficult conversation to have, whereas now it's much easier. I think also GBGB used to only want the greyhounds to go to the rescues that were part of the scheme, but
Okay.
more and more rescues came out of the scheme because you couldn't be anti-racing and be part of the scheme. So there were hardly any left. So now actually they need spaces. So they're happy if a dog has gone to a rescue and is being neutered, then they can claim the bond money and they can and donate it to the charity.
That's better than nothing, I guess. Better than
Yeah,
£10, definitely.
yeah, exactly,
You
exactly.
already, we already talked about GB, the Greyhound Board of Great Britain. They, on their website, are making a lot
Yeah,
of noise about animal welfare, about how they
yeah,
are, uh, trying to fix things
yeah,
and stuff. And blatantly, it's not true, because we're also
yeah,
seeing the injury numbers. We're seeing the numbers of
yeah,
dogs that died on the tracks. And during my research, I found one thing that I sort of heard anecdotally, but I didn't realize it
yeah,
was such a big thing, that there's also
yeah,
been that there have been repeated cases of cocaine being found in in
yeah,
racing dogs, sorry.
yeah,
So with cocaine being found in dogs, and then
yeah.
I imagine these dogs are coming into a home,
Mm,
what kind of problems do they really bring when they've retired from
mm.
kind of quite extraordinary abuse, sort of things that
Yeah,
we would never really think would actually happen to a dog?
yeah, yeah. I think that's why sometimes we need them in kennel quite a long time to actually see the real dog. So you'll have a dog who comes in who may struggle because of the change of environment. We try to have it very calm so that we can start to really see the dog that we have in front of us. Some dogs, though, when they go into a home situation, it can completely flood them with too much. And they will really struggle with it, and they can be quite hyper. I think just as they'll use cocaine as an upper, they'll use downers as well
Oh,
to
wow.
so yeah. And then obviously they're given things like hormone suppressants so that they don't come into season.
Wow.
A bitch won't come into season. So there's a lot going on for them that their systems are in a way used to while they're in that situation, and then they come out of that. And that's the thing, isn't it? People will deny the whole cocaine side of things, but then there are people who've been prosecuted for it. So you're like, well, clearly it is happening.
My favorite
Um,
quote that I found was during the research was this trainer in, I think, Surrey or Sussex, who said, "Oh, the amount of coke found in my dog was no more than what you would find in the normal household." And I just thought, where do you live? I'm really sorry. I don't find that in my household. Call me boring, but
exactly. That's the thing with the veterinary inspections and things like that. You're looking at
yeah,
what are you really looking at? You know, you can give a quick physical once over, a very kind of glance through on a dog, but you're not really looking at what's going on. And there's a massive difference. Obviously, we do go to trainers' kennels sometimes to because we want to see dogs in before we bring them in,
yeah,
and we want to talk to them. And there's a huge difference in the state that dogs are kept in. So some, I'd say we've been to some, and we take dogs from some kennels where they're in really good kennels. They see physios, they're treated
amazing.
very well. And we see others, especially where someone might be giving up, or an older trainer, where
Yeah,
they are in that the classic, and we've got photographs of those with just sort of wooden wire structures that are falling apart on shredded bedding that's not been changed for however and is just covered in feces
oh
and
God, that's awful,
urine,
isn't it? Yeah,
and they're in it. And bringing them out, we've brought dogs out of that situation where it takes a long time for them to adjust just to a normal kennel, because they've not, they don't see the light. It's got no electricity, it's got no heating, it's got
mm,
nothing. So I think that's the thing as well, when the GBGB are saying about welfare, then you're saying, but we have seen these things with our own eyes.
yeah. Does the
You know,
RSPCA ever
uh,
get involved in these things? Or the police even?
sometimes, but again, you get into have they got shelter, food, water? It
Yeah,
becomes a difficult, they're not in a good situation, but does it classify as being a welfare issue? It is welfare, but I think also people will keep them. So some trainers will not, they'll stop racing a dog, but will keep them for a long time. So we've just had some dogs, a dog who came in who was 10. We've had another dog who's come in at 12. So, and you're thinking, but she stopped racing years and years ago. Why
yeah,
didn't you let her? And they'll say because they love them, but you love them, but you're prepared to keep them in a kennel in that environment rather than having them in a home with love and care.
yeah,
So it's that way that they are seen as a commodity though. And I think
yes,
that's that difference as well from a
yeah,
pet to a
yeah.
commodity. Um, so the love that they have is different.
Karen, tell me a little bit about your background. You said before we started the Zoom call that you've always worked in charity. What's your background?
Mm, mm. And so originally, so I've got a degree in psychology and I worked with children,
Oh, beautiful.
so developmentally, and with people with a learning disability for 20 years. And then 13 years ago, I had a greyhound at that time. And then 13 years ago, I moved to animal rescue, working in all breed. And it's really interesting when I look back at that because we used to take greyhounds in, and I probably looked at a greyhound as being quite an easy dog to bring in. And probably looking a bit superficially at them, being completely honest now, because now I understand the nuances and the intricacies of what could be going on. We're just developing some training actually for other rescues um, to help them with their assessments of greyhounds,
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
they're working. So if a dog has got a high prey drive, and what you can do to help with that.
Yes.
Um, because I think is very different to when you actually work in a sight hand specific rescue
Yeah.
to understand what's going on for them.
So when you mentioned that you work with children and especially also with people with special needs,
Mm,
it immediately brought to my mind the greyhounds that are being brought into schools or kindergartens where kids then
mm,
read to them because they've got such a
mm.
gentle temperament.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
just where the magic, I
yeah,
imagine, really
yeah.
happens. Is that something you work with as well?
Yes, yeah. And also I think so I look at the children and the dogs maybe in a very similar way, that it's about understanding what's going on for them. um, and getting to the bottom of that. And you need time to do that. When I worked with children, sometimes children would come on a residential to us, and parents would say at the end of a week, they're completely different and you're miracle workers and that. But it wasn't. It was us taking time to understand what was going on and then giving that child the right way to be able to express themselves, and to help them to develop. We worked with children who maybe couldn't walk or talk or anything,
Oh,
but
wow.
but the same for a dog. It's they can't speak to us, but they're trying to tell us a lot of the time what's going on, and we just have to take that step back and just take some time to understand. And I think, yeah, that's what I like to do. Maybe that
That's
comes from my psychology as well, but that was a long time ago.
I love that. I think that's a really beautiful background, and it's lovely to compare those two as well. Karen, as a last question, I always want to
Yeah.
find out from charities, how is the money
Yeah.
donation still coming in? I know it's tough for everyone.
Really
How is
tough,
your
isn't it, at
charity
the moment?
doing?
Yeah, it's really tough at the moment. So we are very lucky with the supporters that we have, and we're very lucky to still receive legacies, which help us. We actually took a decision last year to sell our centre. We need to buy a new centre, but and the one we were in wasn't quite right for us. So we're working, and I think this is really great. We're working in collaboration with another charity. So we are based at their centre at the moment. They've
Okay.
given us kennel space. So that's working really well and takes the pressure off of us whilst we look for something that is going to be suitable and affordable. Um, but even things like, just like affecting everyone, isn't it? At the moment, the fuel prices, we're driving a van to pick up dogs, to go to assess dogs, to do it. All of those things, it takes money.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're very fortunate that we've got kennel space. And we also, for the lurchers, that because it's not just greyhounds, we rehome lurchers as well. And if a lurcher is coming to us from a home, we'll try to keep them in the home and home them direct from that home, having assessed them there,
Which is
rather
probably
than
best
them
for the
having
dog
to
as
come and
well.
take yeah,
Yeah.
it's better for them, it's better for the families. And in terms of kennel space, it means that we can use the kennel space for the dogs that really need it, who are that welfare concern in a situation. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Karen, thank you so much for your time today. I want to end this call with you turning your camera, if you can, towards the little dog that I know is sitting next to you.
I can. I don't know what she's doing. Oh, yeah.
Oh, hi,
So
sweetheart. Who is
this is
this?
Tiger. She's the lurcher.
And she
She
is
came from
technically looking
Ireland.
for a home, or is she already at home?
I think she's probably going to stay here.
Oh, bless.
So yeah, she came from Ireland when she was 6 months old. She was left on the street, on the
Oh,
side
God.
of the road. And we did rehome her, but sometimes that's another thing that's really important, when we're there for if someone can't carry on looking after their dog, or sometimes people have to, have illnesses that where they no one knows what's in the future, do they? So we're there
Yeah.
for the lifetime of the dog. So
That
yeah,
dog
she's
looks
here, and I
very
think
at
she'll.
home there. I have a feeling it's going to stay with you. Karen, thank you so much. I'm going to leave it
Thank
here.
you, Nina.